In every age and in every culture, music has united us, entertained us, captured our imaginations, soothed our hearts, and been a constant source of awe and inspiration. I recently had the opportunity to sit down with country music legend Clay Walker, the creator of dozens of hits, platinum albums, and awards. For 3 decades, his music has provided a soundtrack for the lives of his fans. All art springs forth from the heart, mind, soul, and life experience of the artist. So I was eager to explore the man and his music. Our conversation ranged from growing up in a poor family, his decision not to go to college, the obstacles he faced chasing his dream, the unique trials and temptations that come with success, marriage, family, his battle with MS, and what he believes is the secret to becoming an amazing husband and father. Our conversation is one between 2 friends that you now get to sit in on and listen to. In an incredibly human way, this conversation shares what it's like to be an artist, the journey, the pitfalls, the highs and lows, and how success and struggles helped one man discover his essential purpose. Welcome, I'm Matthew Kelly. I'm here with country music legend Clay Walker. Clay, thank you. It's great to be with you. We appreciate you coming to be with us. I got some serious questions to get started. How much coffee do you drink each day?
3 or 4 cups. You
Yeah.
know, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon.
Doesn't keep you awake at night?
I like coffee.
All right, very good. Second serious question, favorite movie?
Oh, that's easy. Tombstone. I
Tombstone.
love those cowboy movies.
Yeah? What do you love about Tombstone?
It's quick and witty, quotable. You know, a lot of my friends know the lines. You know, I'm your Huckleberry, or you're no Daisy. You know, the just funny lines that always stick and, make for good humor.
Excellent. Favorite city in the world to play a concert?
Ooh, that's tough. I would say Houston, at the Woodlands in particular. We just did it. We started our tour off this year. The show there was sold out, and pandemonium, and it's always great to see a lot of bodies in the seats and see them enjoying. But there's lots of places I love playing. We were in Kansas City last night, and that was a phenomenal show. So there's all over, but Houston just because it's home.
Does it matter more who you're with than where you're at? Like, does the crowd make the concert?
There's always either, to me, what makes a great show is when the energy of the audience matches the energy of the entertainer. And you can go out sometimes and that you're having a phenomenal show vocally, you're singing great, the band's playing great, and the crowd's just kind of there, but I always look at it like an elephant. You don't just try to move them all at once, and you just take your time. And I can say that there's been very few concerts in my life that didn't end up where I wanted them to by the last song.
Fantastic. Favorite city in the world to visit for vacation?
I like Rome, and I've only been there once, but we were there for a couple of weeks, and that was an incredible experience. But here in the States, I would say that I really like San Antonio. It's got all the charm to it, the Riverwalk, food, people, language. You can speak Spanish there, which I love Spanish, and I just really like the feel of San Antonio.
You grew up in Texas. What was life like as a child?
Life as a child was, as I look back now, the innocence of it was. So I think we all miss that, as adults. And I like to say, that I might grow old, but I'll never grow up. I grew up as a child on a ranch or farm that was passed down in my family for generations and generations. And there's I take a lot of pride in that. We were poor. We worked for everything that we got. I tease my kids, that I grew up hunting because we had to. We killed whatever we ate, and that might be a squirrel, it might be a raccoon, and my kids look at me like, I mean, with tears in their eyes, a raccoon, really, Dad? So, but there's something to be said, for feeling hungry, and my kids will most likely never experience that, but I look back and relish, how I grew up. That we had to learn how to survive, and that's good.
When you were 9 years old, you got your first guitar. What do you remember about that?
My dad, as early as I can remember, played guitar and sang, and all of my aunts and uncles, they all played instruments and would sing. I just thought everybody did that, and I wanted my dad to teach me how to play guitar, and so at age 9, he bought me this Catalina guitar. This thing was a piece of junk, and the strings were so far off of the neck that I could barely press them down. And later on in life, I'd asked my dad, why would he get me a guitar like that? He said, because I knew that if you really wanted it bad enough, that you would realize that there's pain in it. And he ended up buying me a great guitar, later. But it was a moment for me that getting that first guitar. It's like getting your first horse or your first car. It was exciting, but that was just the beginning. There was a lot of work that went into becoming a musician.
When did you first think, that's what I want to do with my life?
When I was 15 years old, I was in this talent contest at South Park High School in Beaumont, Texas, and I had the choice of either doing this country song by John Conley called Rose-Colored Glasses, or this song by Lionel Richie called All Night Long, which is a huge Lionel Richie song. And my dad was stone cold country singer. I mean, he believed in two kinds of music, country and Western. And that's all we listened to in the truck. It's just the way I grew up. But I tried different genres, especially Lionel Richie. I love Lionel Richie, and so I sang all night long at this predominantly African-American high school. And I learned something about myself, that I wanted to please the audience in front of me. I wasn't just doing it for me. There was this deep desire to please the people in front of me. And so I did this song, and the crowd was going berserko. I mean, standing up, yelling, screaming in the middle of the song. I mean, it literally was like I could feel. My only time I've ever had stage fright was that night when I first started out. I was having stage fright. Never have I had it since. The audience cured me of that. We'd replace the stage fright with this voracious appetite to please and become an entertainer. And I knew that night, I was 14 or 15, and that this is what I was going to do the rest of my life.
So 17, you go to Nashville, but between that night and going to Nashville, what did you do to set that up? Or what are the steps you took toward that dream?
I think there's a misperception a lot of times, and rightly so, of the public, even myself, of what is the protocol for trying to have a career in the music business or an entertainment business. And there's no exact way, but Nashville was, and still is, the hub of, if you're going to be a big-time country singer, you can't bypass Nashville. It's the gatekeeper. And when I went the first time, I was 17. I'd been playing all the way up from 15 to 17. I was playing every spot that would let me play for free. I just wanted to go in and sing in front of people. And I started writing songs. And I ended up liking writing songs more than I liked singing. And, there was just this, I don't know, it's a wonderful comfort, if you will, to know what you were born to do. And you know that you're in that spot, the right spot. And it is a gift. The talent is a gift. but it will not propel you to where you want to get. You have to put in the work. You have to put in the time. And I had done that, and I went to Nashville and got rejected by every label in town. Nobody thought I was good enough to make it. And what did that do to me? It's kind of like chasing a girl that tells you no a lot. You just keep chasing. And finally, she's going to give you a shot, you know. And I remember reading a quote by Willie Nelson, who didn't make it until he was like 40. And he said, if you keep knocking on the door, eventually someone's going to answer. And so I just kept honing what I was doing, my writing skills, my performance skills. And one day a producer walked into a bar I was playing in, and he was producing Clint Black, Charlie Daniels, a group called Little Texas, Kenny Rogers. He had tons of acts. And he walked up to me and he said, I want you to come to Nashville and I want to make a record with you. And 2 weeks later, I was in Nashville making a record.
And where was that? Where were you playing that night when he came to see you?
I was playing in this club called the Neon Armadillo in Beaumont, and there were two other country music acts, Mark Chestnut and Tracy Byrd, who had already gotten record deals, and we were competing against that club. You know, country music was really alive and well in Beaumont, Texas, in the late 80s and 90s. And my bass player at the time said, he said, this is before the producer walked in. My bass player at the time said, you know, they say lightning never strikes twice in the same place. He goes, but I think it's about to strike 3 times. And it wasn't very long after that when James Stroud, the producer, you know, the biggest producer in Nashville at that time, walked in and said what he said. He listened to me play some songs, and literally 2 weeks later, I was in Nashville and we were recording my very first album.
How long between the first visit to Nashville at 17 and this second trip to Nashville to record?
It was 5 years.
Okay.
And it was 5 years later that you know, I'd been rejected by all the folks in Nashville that this happened, and my mom and dad begged me to go to college. And I graduated high school at 17, and I told my mom and dad that if they would just, you know, ease up and give me 4 years, let me have 4 years trying to make it in the music business. If I don't, I promise I'll go to college. Because no one in my family, much less, I mean, not just my immediate family, but no one carrying the Walker name had ever been to college. And they wanted to see that happen. And, you know, it didn't happen. But I in that 4th year, you know, we started to see the traction, getting attention. And then in year 5, you know, that was the one. Look, I went 1 year over. What can I say?
So first trip to Nashville, you're 17, you got no money, you're sleeping in your car, it doesn't work out, you're driving back to Texas. What's that drive like? What are you thinking?
Defeat. Total
Okay.
defeat. I was destroyed. I mean, I won't lie to you. The journey was, you know, to Nashville. I left Beaumont in the middle of the night. I ended up in Nacogdoches, Texas about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I got pulled over for an expired inspection sticker in my car. And the police officer pulled me over, and he saw my guitar in the back of my seat there, and he said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Nashville. He said, you been drinking? I said, no, sir. And he said, I play fiddle. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, I'll tell you what, he said, I won't write you up if you'll come back to the police station and pick with me a little bit. And I said, okay. I didn't have any money to pay a ticket anyway, you know, so we go back to the police station, and he gets his fiddle out. I get my guitar out. We played for about 30 minutes. And he said, well, good luck. And I went to Nashville. I was there 2 days, sleeping in my car. And went around to all the labels, took a little tape, into all of them. And only one of them actually said, I think there's something here, but it's nowhere close. You're going to have to work a lot harder. And I left, and I drove back through Nacogdoches, and I stopped off at the police station, and I asked that cop to be in my band, and he joined my band.
Really?
So, that's the way music works. It really is. It really unites people, and I've got a lot of stories that music has contributed. It's been a great journey.
So your family was a huge influence in the area of music. Who were your other influences? Who were the people you looked up to, musical heroes?
I have a lot of musical influences and just icons, that really helped me be who I am as an artist. And none more than probably George Strait. I don't know him that well. I did tour with him a couple of years, but he just, it wasn't just his voice, which his voice is phenomenal. It was his ability to be a complete artist. He knows who he is. He knew that from the very onset of his career. And he knew how to pick songs. He knew his audience, and he knew what was authentic to himself. And I'm still trying. I'm still trying to be that good. He's always been that good at doing that. And I learned just by observation. But I would say that the most influential person would be George Strait. But I've loved people like Bob Seger, Lionel Richie, Keith Whitley. Merle Haggard, to me, is the greatest singer of all time. I mean, I wouldn't want to emulate his rough lifestyle, but definitely the greatest singer that ever lived.
I've heard artists like Garth Brooks and Tim McGraw describe your voice as one of the purest in the industry. When did you realize that you had that sort of gift?
I was just having this conversation with my daughter this morning, and I wasn't really what I would say a great singer until the last few years. And I say that with confidence that I wanted to learn how to get better. And at our church, there was a Christmas concert being put on about 7 years ago, and I was asked by the pastor to sing in it. So I said yes, of course. And I went to the choir room, and there was 25 people in there who sang in the choir. All of them sang better than I did, and I'm not being humble. I was flabbergasted at the control that they had and the power and just the ease that they sang with. And when it came my turn to sing, I actually felt nervous. And after this, exercise of being in there, seeing what songs we were going to sing, I singled out a lady that seemed to be helping others, with some certain warm-ups and things. And I asked her, her name was Margaret Rose. I said, Miss Margaret, I said, I need to ask you something. I said, is there any way you could teach me to do what they have? She goes, yeah. So we've been working together for 4 or 5 years, and now I can go out and do 10 shows in a row and never get tired and have this control and stuff. That I'm always flattered by someone who thinks that I sing good, especially somebody like the guys you named, Garth Brooks or Tim, and it's those are two of my favorite individuals, by the way. They're very humble. We're not best friends by any means, but they know who I am. I know who they are, and they're really great people.
So when you've got a gift like that, what sort of responsibility do you feel around protecting the gift, exercising the gift, sharing the gift?
You know, I pass on information. Yeah, I would say if I'm good at something in particular, it would be, you know, having information that can bless people's lives, you know, and try to deliver it in the shortest amount of time that you can, because people don't want to hear a lecture or be, you know, I'm always available, I would say, to anyone that's seeking some information that I have. And, you know, taking care of my voice, that it's taken me my whole career to learn how to do it right. And I only want to get better at it. And I feel the same way about, you know, a few different things that I'm very passionate about. Don't like wasting time. You know, I hate the fact that we're all going to die. You know, not trying to be morbid, but I'm like, I just wish there was enough, even more and more time to learn to be better at the things that I love. And I'm constantly seeking to do that.
So you release your first album. It's mega, it's huge, triple platinum, 3 #1 hits. What was that like?
You know, I still feel so excited when one of my songs comes on the radio. It's not ego. It's the greatest joy that happens because I know that I'm listening to it. Somebody else is hearing it too. It's on the radio. Whatever area that I'm in, they're hearing it too. And they're having memories with that song. You know, they grew up with it or they're just learning it. But I still cannot believe how fast the time has gone. I still can't believe that, you know, that I've had that kind of success, if you want to call it. That just sounds like such an ugly word, success. But I can't believe that all that's happened because I still feel like a kid that's still trying to make it. You know, I really do. And I've never have, you know, even remotely thought of myself in the same breath as some of the other singers out there, some of the ones you've named. I still don't think of myself like that. And I hope I never do.
But you have this huge year. You release your first album. It's enormous. 3 #1 hits. You get named Best New Male Artist. What was that like?
You know, trying to find out why you do something, you know, is, I think, a big part of the why is important. Whenever the first song I had written that went #1 was the song called Live Until I Die. And I wrote that song for my grandmother. You know, that's the way I grew up. Muddy roads, muddy feet. I didn't live on no blacktop street. Every line of that is my autobiography. And when I got my first check for writing that song, it was an enormous amount of money. I thought that a mistake had been made because I was still poor. You know, I still didn't have any money because I was, you know, just trying to make it. And that song had gone #1. And in the first time that went to the mailbox and that check was in there, I opened it up and I just was like, oh my, I literally thought someone made a very gross error. And I called my agent and I said, hey, I said, I got this check. And I said, I'm really nervous about it. You know, I was even looking over my shoulder, you know? And he said, how much is it? And no, I told him how much it was. And he goes, oh yeah, he goes, there's a lot more coming than that. And I was like, you know, I couldn't believe it. But the first thing it did was I bought my grandmother a house. I built my grandmother a home because, you know, very humble beginnings. You know, we lived in a house that she and my grandfather paid $20 for, right out of the Depression.
Mm.
So it was a moment.
You mentioned your grandmother. She played an enormous role in your life. What is one of your fondest memories of her?
You know, I have so many memories with my grandmother. Her name was Mary Elizabeth. I named my daughter after her, Mary Elizabeth. But she was the greatest human being that I've ever known. And she was a saint. You know, she raised kids. You know, my dad was one of them, you know, who, you know, put her through hell, you know, literally. She lost her husband when she was 40. She never dated, never remarried. And she loved me. I mean, I knew that I was her favorite. I mean, but I think all of her grandkids thought that they were her favorite, but I knew I was. Some of my greatest memories with her, and there's too many to count, but would be feeding chickens. She loved her chickens. And she'd throw the scratch out, you know, and I was 3 or 4, you know, and she loved me so much. And she loved roses, and she had these roses that were called Seven Sisters. And she taught me how to trim them back. Her blackberry cobbler, I would go pick blackberries and bring them back to the house, and she would make blackberry cobbler. And the smell of it to this day is seriously probably the greatest smell to me on earth, because it gets all those memories come flooding back of being at her table or sitting by her rocking chair. I'd sit on the floor and I'd sing, and she would cry when I would sing. I would sing this song called Sunshine on My Shoulders, you know, and she would just say, please don't sing that. I'm crying now. And I would just sing it that much. I was only 4 or 5, you know, and, but now that I look at it, it just, yeah, it brings back a flood of memories. But she was a great lady.
She gave you the name Clay.
She did. There was a movie called Spencer's Mountain, and the actor, one of the main actors on it, his name was Clayboy. And so to my whole family, to this day, they call me Clayboy. And it used to embarrass me to no end in school, you know, because all my cousins would call me Clayboy, and I hated it. I would just cringe, you know, but now I kind of like it.
Talked a lot about memories. You spoke about how people come to concerts and, you know, songs stir memories in them. Some songs take us into the past. Some songs take us into the future. Some songs pull off both. I think Live Until I Die is one of those songs. You know, you spoke about it, you know, being biographical, telling your story, but it is also very much forward-facing.
Mm-hmm.
When you record a song like that, do you know you've got a hit?
I didn't know how special that song was going to be at the time. I think the most flattering thing that ever happened with that song was, you know, in school, you know, I hated school, but hated math, but I loved creative writing, and I flourished in that. And after I wrote the song "Live Until I Die," there was a high school in Beaumont, Texas, that used that song as a model for creative writing. They had it up on the board, and when I found that out, it was the most flattering thing that I think to this day, you know, I don't think anything will ever come close to the way that made me feel. Was that a teacher who taught creative writing used that as the model. And you know, I learned in school, you know, writing essays, you know, a thesis, you know, that the thesis was real important that every line, you know, in the paragraphs pointed to that thesis. And that is what songwriting is. You find the hook of the song, and every line should point right at it. And no matter how cool it sounds, If it doesn't point at it, it has to go. And through a lot of trial and error, I was able to formulate, get to that point of being able to write it. When I wrote that song, the foundation's already in there. But I didn't write that song going, oh, I need to make this line do this or that. It just came out of me, in the form that it needed to be in. And, I look back on it and go, I was only 17 when I wrote that song. And I go, how in the hell did I do that? It's crazy. But very blessed to have a good teacher, first of all, in school that taught me how to form creative writing. But then very blessed from above to have those words come out on that paper.
Mm. So when you're first touring with your first album, the crowd's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What does that feel like?
Well, I remember, I guess this is kind of an egotistical moment, but why not just be honest? I was doing a show with a big superstar, and not George Strait, but I was doing this show, and it was the only show I ever did with this guy, and he had like one of the biggest songs of all time at this moment, and I had just had "What's It to You" and "Live Until I Die," and I came out on stage and I opened for the guy. And there was probably 15,000 people there. And I left the stage. And while he was on stage singing his gigantic, ginormous smash monster of a hit, people were chanting, "We want Clay. We want Clay." And I was embarrassed. I was on the bus and I thought that's what I was hearing, but it was that moment of, hey, I've arrived, and it was kind of, sometimes when I hear, or when we're in the Bible, and you hear Jesus and he's going in on the donkey or the colt, and it's Palm Sunday and people are chanting, and somebody said something to him and he goes, I'll tell you what, if they weren't chanting, these rocks would cry out. And it was kind of like that moment, only unlike Jesus, I think I had an egotistical moment. Very unflattering, but I think also it's important to tell the truth, in I wouldn't even call this an interview, just call this like a moment between two friends, you and I talking, and that's more refreshing to me than I'd rather hear an artist just tell the truth rather than trying to BS everybody and make it sound all polished.
What is the mood on the bus before a show, and what is the mood on the bus after the show?
I think you could ask any of the guys individually and separately, and they would all say this. I've been to the Kentucky Derby a couple of times, and I've actually gotten to go down on the track and walk the horse up to the gate. I didn't hold the horse, but I was there when they were walking the horse into the chute to get ready for the Kentucky Derby. And I'm watching one horse walk in, gate closed, another horse walk in, and I'm starting to get chill bumps just talking about it right now. There is an energy, and you can see these horses, their whole demeanor changes. When they get in that gate, it's like this. They are alive. And it is, you can see the blood pumping through their veins, and you can see these jockeys just getting in because they know that it is going to be an explosion when they come out of that gate. That's exactly what it feels like before we step on stage. We have a routine just before we walk on. We all pray the Our Father. We get in a circle. And I say to the guys, okay, let's be mindful of our sins. That's forgiveness. And I'll make some comment like, and I know there are many because I live with you. And we'll say the Our Father, and we'll put our hands in the center after the prayer. And whatever city we're in, we come up with some name, right? Some slogan right there. Like if we're in I don't know a city, but just say Beaumont. We might say go big in Beaumont time. We always have a little saying right there. We all break like a football team or something. And when we start walking to that stage, I'm telling you, you can see the posture, everything changes. And when we come off stage, it's like a runner's high. There are all these endorphins that are kicked in, and so much joy is had there. And there's an order to it. We practice hard, sound checks. We have a band leader. We have all of the elements that you have to have for greatness, and we expect it. Every night, every guy's looking at the other guy, going, "Do your damn part." I want mine to sound good. Do your part. And there's this expectation. But we come off stage, we have this runner's high, and it takes us several hours for that to kind of simmer down where you can sleep. People think that musicians party all night. That's why they stay up. That's not why they stay up. Musicians stay up because that high won't stop. It's just there, and you got to let it settle down before your own melatonin can kick in and put you to sleep.
All these years on the road, on the bus, do you have a favorite memory, a funny moment? I know there's lots of funny moments every day, but do you have one that just comes to mind?
Bus stories. I don't think so. I don't think there's anything in particular. They say what happens on the bus stays on the bus. We gotta observe the code.
So if someone says to you, "Hey, what's it like on the bus?" How would you describe it?
Bus life, and this is my wife Jessica and her friends cannot believe what I'm about to say. On the bus, there could be 12 guys on there, and not one word said for 3 or 4 hours. Now, you couldn't put 12 chicks on the bus and no conversation. My wife looked, she said, "You are joking." I go, "No." I mean, guys are they have their own thoughts, And of course there's conversation, sometimes, but I'm saying you could literally go for hours and no one even say anything. And it's not because it's depressing. It's actually relaxing. But I prefer to be on the bus asleep, at night and wake up, whatever town you're going to be in. But there's some truth to road warrior, the name Road Warriors. And it's not for everyone. There's a lot of great musicians out there who would never go on the road. And it takes a special demeanor to be out there. And for us, if you're going to be out there with people, they got to be cool. They got to be good people. We don't have any a-holes, on the road with this. You don't last in our group. And we've got, most of the guys have been here 25 years. And there's a lot to be said for that because these guys are phenomenal musicians. They could go play anywhere. And I think it's one of the reasons why we're still together this long is we all do have some common interests. One of those, which is important, is being the best musician and always trying to get better, knowing that there's an expectation. You want to be somewhere where someone understands how good you are. Our wives are not musicians. They may think the world of us, but they don't recognize those little nuances that make you great. And I would say that overall that is the main reason why we've been together this long.
You talk about the nuances. Roger Federer is better some days than other days. You take the best at anything, and they're better some days than other days. Sometimes they're the only ones that know. And they're able to say, it's a little off my game today. Mm-hmm. How do you know if you are? What is it that tells you that?
There are times when I'll be warming up, getting ready to go on stage, and I can feel that I might not be 100%. And it's rare, but I pray through it. I just tell God, look, I know that you gave me this voice. And however you want it to sound tonight, that's how it's going to sound. And I really don't stress over it. And most nights it gets better. But you as an individual, and the guys around too. We've been together long enough that we all can recognize that. But we pull together as a group stronger when we feel that, and we pull towards that individual that is not having their best night. But very few people are going to notice that out in the audience. But that's a rule that I set early on, and as a leader, and I'll be honest, like I don't have to lead these guys. They have a band leader, but they're all accountable. But one of the things I said, if there's ever a mistake made, there's only one unforgivable sin. That's if you clam up and go in a hole. I said, you're telling everybody else in this band that I'm better than y'all, and I shouldn't have made that mistake. I said, you make a mistake, I want to see you smile. Because that should be funny, because it's basically an anomaly. And so we have constantly, bred goodness. I heard a producer say this one time. He goes, I really like a band that'll give to the center. And I thought, is that just some hippie saying or something? No, I finally get it. Giving to the center means we're all going to give to what keeps us together, and that is the center. That's wishing, or not just wishing, but for the good of the other. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not wishing, but hoping for the good of the other, if you will.
I've seen you sick as a dog, cold and flu symptoms. And I'm thinking, there's no way this guy's going to perform tonight. And you get out there on the stage, it's like a transformation, that you're just like a different person. You do the show, you're back on the bus, you're sick as a dog again. How does that happen?
Matthew, I'll tell you something crazy. I've never missed a show in 27 years. Actually, since I was 15. But since I've been a known artist, I've never missed a show.
What drives that? There must have been times where you didn't want to do it, where you were sick, where you wanted to cancel for whatever reasons. What goes through your mind that prevents you from doing that?
The love of it. And I can honestly say that I love what I do, more than anything else.
You talked about Live Until I Die, but you've had tons of hits, tons of albums. Is there one song that is more special to you than other songs?
Live Until I Die is more special to me because it is my autobiography. I've written a lot of songs, and all of them mean something special, or they wouldn't have gotten written, or they wouldn't have gotten recorded. But that's just, that was my humble beginning, and every night that I do that on stage, I can still smell the blackberry cobbler.
What are some of the other songs that you just love performing?
I love singing the songs that have the big ranges, like This Woman, This Man, or Fall, or even What's It to You. Those songs they're not easy, and it's a challenge. There are a lot of songs that are kind of easy to sing, but that are still great. It doesn't, how difficult they are or not to sing does not make a song great. It's what's the message and who loves it? How does it affect someone? But for me, I love that challenge and you got to rise to the occasion every night. And there are, speaking of nuances, I mean, I stretch my range out from the lowest note I can hit to the highest note I can hit. And it's it's kind of like stepping up on a 100-foot cliff and go, I know I'm going to jump off and there's water down there, but how am I going to land exactly? Am I going to do a belly flop? Or is it, am I going to break the water just right? And that's what it is for me. And so those kind of songs really, get my juices flowing.
So writing music and performing music live, touring, are two different universes. When it's time to write a new album, what is the process you go through?
There are some pieces of the process that are going to be the same for everyone, and then there's those flavors that you add to it, that are, you'd call that authenticity. For me, everything starts with the song. It doesn't matter how good you sing. It doesn't matter if you sing like Celine Dion or you sing like Elvis or whoever you sing like. You can take a great song and an average singer, and you can have a superstar. You can take a great singer and an average song, and you have nothing. So the song is the most important piece. It's the message. It's the people that listen to music most of the time, they want to find themselves in that song. So I feel like by being a common person like I am, and the way I grew up and the way I still live, that I'm relatable. That I'm not writing from an ivory tower. I'm writing with my boots down on the ground. So the writing piece of it is the most important part. And if you can't write them, then you need to find songs that do what I'm talking about, that speak to a person's heart. And it's not about being clever. That doesn't get it. People feel and internalize things. And then the other important piece, and I think that this is just something that, and I'm going to use a big word here, ineffable. There are no words for this that really accurately describe it, but there is something in a singer's voice, in what's going to make them famous. People listen. They hear this thing I'm talking about, and it hits their tuning fork just right. And that's when you have the magic. And you can't fake that. You can't produce that into a song. It's either in that singer's voice. It's the only thing that will perpetuate an artist's career. You cannot have a long career without that piece I'm talking about. You can have a big hit, but you're going to disappear. If you don't have that thing, longevity starts and ends with that unspeakable thing that hits that tuning fork in the individuals.
Okay, but you could have that and not have longevity. You're in an industry of one-hit wonders.
Now the truth comes out.
But you've been at it for 30 years, 3 decades.
Yep.
In an industry of one-hit wonders. Every year we see people have one hit and we never hear from them ever again. Yes, I believe there is a gift, but there has to be other ingredients that go into an enduring career like that. What are those other ingredients?
Are we sure we want to see the wizard? It's the business part of it is it's the unknown to the public, and for there are what we call kingmakers in every business, in politics, in and for music, it's much like politics. It is politics. Um, there's a handful of gatekeepers or kingmakers in Nashville, and you're either in that circle or you're a one-hit wonder.
What about the work ethic? What is the work ethic required to
No,
endure for 3 decades in an industry like this?
the work ethic is it's you're either a workaholic in this business or you are gone. I mean, you better have the appetite to work your ASS off because there's another guy or girl right behind you willing to do it. And so it's you become a slave to the business, and but it's we're all slaves to something. We all are.
Obsession is good.
Yeah, and but you have to have a team. Like this is a team sport. This is not an individual sport. This isn't golf. This isn't tennis. This is a team sport, and you better have every position filled, and it better be a team, or you can't make it. When you see an artist who's risen to the top, you can bet that they have the best team in place, and so that the artist can go do what they love doing. You can't fake it to the audience. If I had to do all the stuff that my team does, there's no way I could deliver on stage. Couldn't do it. There'd be too much stuff, too much fill in the coconut, and you need to, and the team's got to know, I can't put that on the artist. But there's definitely minutia everywhere, and you have to have that whole team. I mean, I look at it like football, like American football. You got to have the quarterback. That's what I consider myself, quarterback. Tom Brady. No. you gotta have the quarterback. You gotta have the coaching staff. You gotta have the defensive line, the offensive line. You gotta have all of it, and then you gotta have a game plan. And then when that game plan is not working, you have to have plan B and C and D. You gotta have all the plans, and you gotta execute them as well.
So you look back, I mean, there's some moments that change our lives forever, and we maybe don't realize it at the time, but we look back and we realize that, and obviously, getting your first record contract, having your first #1 hit, your first album being enormous, being named Best New Male Artist of the Year. These are life-changing moments. Are there other life-changing moments you can look back and say, that moment, my life changed right there?
From a career standpoint, yes. When the producer walked in that night, James Stroud, when he walked in and heard me sing, and he liked the original songs I was doing. Live Until I Die was one of those songs. And getting that nod after being rejected by every label in Nashville, and then the biggest producer, of the last decade comes in and says, "You're the guy." My career launched like a rocket taking off. I mean, you couldn't have stopped it with a freight train, no way. And he was the reason for that. He knew what he was going to do with me in the studio. He knew he liked the songs I'd written. He found me, "What's It to You?" Which was a gigantic monster hit coming out of the deal. But the first time I heard "What's It to You" on the radio, I was in Beaumont. I was driving in my truck, and it came on the radio. I just pulled over on the side of the road and had a moment, and couldn't believe it. There I am on the radio. It was like alive, And you can play a song on, a CD, or you can stream it, off of Spotify or Pandora, wherever you stream it, play it in your car. It does not have the same sound as when it's coming through the radio. The radio has some stuff they do, and it just sounds like there's life to it. It's alive. And I still, to this day, I'd rather hear myself on the radio than on one of those streaming services.
Every career has ups and downs. What advice would you have for someone who's at the peak of their career right now? In anything.
There's no song, what goes up must come down. And there's no way you stay on top forever. You do have peaks and valleys, or you have a peak and then just a valley. I've been through those peaks and valleys in my career, and the valleys are tough. They really are, and sometimes you don't know if you're going to come back out of them. And I've had a lull in my career at radio where we haven't played on radio for almost a decade, meaning new songs. And we have a new album out right now, and that album is called Texas to Tennessee, and it debuted #1 on iTunes. That shocked me, that an artist that hasn't had a new hit in nearly a decade has an album that comes out, and the new audience is buying it. And so my advice is, don't give up if you do hit one of those valleys. That you have the gift, find it, and don't listen to any naysayers. Do what you do to the best of your ability. That's why you made it in the first place. And I believe that we're going to have more hits. For myself, I think we are going to have more hits. And radio is liking this new album, and they're telling us that they are, and they're starting to play the songs on it. So, it's the other advice I would say is, if you have a family, a wife, husband, or kids, that you can never give them too much of yourself. That, I've learned through all these years, and COVID helped me realize this more than anything. Being home for a year and a half helped strengthen those bonds and those ties and those moments. But there's nothing like proximity, being close, and your career will flourish because of those bonds, and your family will want it for you, and you'll just have more strength. So, I know that's kind of preachy, but I really believe it.
If you could go back and do it all again, what would you do differently?
Not one damn thing. I wouldn't change anything.
There aren't some moments where you wish I would have been more present. I wish I would have enjoyed that more.
Yeah, there's that. But I would say where my life is today, that there are no accidents, that I made a lot of mistakes. And I don't believe in perfect. I don't believe there was one perfect man that walked this earth, and I'm not him, and I don't know anybody else that's perfect. And so where I am today, I feel like my wife knows that I love her beyond anything, and I feel like all 7 of my children know that without a doubt that I am there at any moment that they need me.
So you have a wonderful wife, you have beautiful children. What's your favorite thing about being a father?
My favorite thing about being a dad is how much my kids feel my protection. I feel important. That there's no other man on earth that could give them that, and I do it. It's I really feel like that's why men were put here. I call it the three P's. Procreate, provide, and protect. And I've done those things. And my dad, on his deathbed, told me something, and it really told me a lot of things on his deathbed. It's something that really resonated with me. I asked my dad, I said, "Do you believe in God?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." And I said, "No." He said, he paused for about 60 seconds. He came back. He says, he said, "I believe in the devil too, son." He said, "You can't outrun that son of a bitch." And I want my kids to know that, that they are going to have trials their whole life. And, the best thing you can do is be prepared, to stand right in the middle of the road and meet them head on, because it's coming. I try not to sugarcoat things with my kids as much as I want to. I know I do, but the mistakes that I've made, you asked, I just, if I could go back and change them, I know that I'm going to make more in the future. So it's really, life is a series of mistakes. And every now and then you get a couple of things right. And in those moments, you can feel whole and unbroken and happy, and joyful. But there's way more times, that I feel like I've messed up.
Mm. You've been enormously successful, and as an extension of that, your children are growing up very differently to how you grew up, and in many ways are living, a life of extraordinary privilege. How does that affect the way you father them?
I don't think my kids know that they're privileged just yet. We all protect our kids from the things we can protect them from. That's natural. But I would say that where money is concerned and material things, my wife has done an incredible job. We both grew up humble, very modest. I grew up poor. She grew up modest. And neither one of us are excessive, with, like my wife has 2 pieces of jewelry that I've given her since we met. She has no jewelry. Didn't even want it. Our kids are really blessed to call her mom. And, do I worry that they're going to meet, that they're not exposed to some of the rougher things? Yeah, because that's not reality. But as we start to cross that threshold, and letting them know that like, we don't let them watch the news. We don't want our kids watching any news because of the way that things have become much more graphic and much more politicized. Either way, we want them to have their innocence, but we both are not, living under any kind of ruse that our kids are going to escape the hardships of life. But I guess in helping them be prepared, we do make them work for money. Like we don't have a nanny. My daughter and son, the older 2, clean the kitchen every night. I cook. The kids help chop up stuff to cook. It's inclusive. We take care of our animals on our ranch. We pick up trash. We do things that we think will instill a good work ethic in them. We are religious in our home. We pray. We have a chapel. All of our kids have been taught to pray, and we try to just arm them the best way we can with the things that we think they'll need. And but yeah, mine and my wife's life were very much different than the way our children are growing up. But I think that we have managed to instill the values that will keep them grounded.
You love being a dad, and that's clear. What advice would you have for a new father?
Okay. You said would I do something different? And there is one. That you ask a question that hits on a nerve. New fathers, well, at least in my situation, I was probably overbearing, wanting my kids to be like role model citizens, from the time they came out of the womb, and man, you just chill out would be my advice, and just know that you were a baby once, and the more patient you are, I think the better it is for the whole family. A dad's job, and I've learned this the hard way, is a dad's job is to really keep his household peaceful. Not raising your voice. You don't have to be firm. Just be there. And when things do get out of control, calm them down.
What about marriage? Does music make you a better husband?
I married a saint. She reminds me so much of my grandmother. I don't know how she tolerates me. I'll
Me
be
either.
I'll be honest. I'm not easy to live with. I think I'm pretty fun-loving, but I think I can be difficult. And she's never complained, and that's part of her sainthood. I think she's already sainted. But I can say what makes our marriage work in a great way is that, and I will say this, two things. One is, it really bothers me when people say, you got to work at it. I don't think you have to work at it. I think you got to work on you. You don't have to work at marriage. You got to work on you. And my wife loves being a mother. She flourishes in it and loves it. And, we have the best relationship of any couple that I know. And it's because of her mainly. But she knows what's great about being a wife and great about being a mom. It doesn't stress her to be those. And she's patient with me. And through COVID, we had one slight argument, just one, very beginning of it, and we fix it immediately. We do not let time go by if there's any kind of rub at all. And with our children, I can say that we discipline often, and it's mild. It's right. It's not letting it build up to a place where you got to lose control. And that's what makes it work for us, and it's fantastic. I never want another wife. Just put it that way.
What advice would you have for newlyweds?
Let me rephrase that. What advice would I have for newlyweds? First of all, don't marry someone that you have a doubt about, any doubt. If there's one doubt, it's not going to be right. It'll never be right. When you do get married, try to be the first one to say, I'm sorry. That's a hard thing for people. If you can't say, I'm sorry, it's not going to work.
So you've got the new album. It's doing well. New album takes you on the road. Hit album takes you on the road even more. How is that different when you have the family at home as opposed to when you were just getting started?
It's hard. You know, I've laid in bed at night on the road, and I've shed some tears. You know, it's there's definitely a sacrifice that's made on both ends. Sacrifice made by me being alone, a sacrifice made by my wife being alone with 5 kids. That's a huge sacrifice. Her sacrifice is way, 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 way bigger than mine. They both hurt, and probably the toughest moment that I've had ever is this week. I was leaving to go to Kansas City, and I had to get up at 5 in the morning and fly out. And normally I'd ride the bus leaving home, but I wanted to stay an extra night in my own bed and be with the kids and Jessica. And I woke up at 5 and quietly got my pants and my boots and went into my closet to not wake anybody up and go in. And I wasn't in the closet 60 seconds, and I hear, and it's my 3-year-old son, Ezra. And he opens the door, and he just comes running to me, and he buries his head in me.
Mm.
Whew. That's tough. That was tough.
25 years ago, you're diagnosed with MS. When the doctor tells you you've got MS, what are some of the first things that go through your mind?
I'm gonna die. You know, that was the roughest day and night of my entire being. First of all, I was 26. Just having one hit after another. I mean, I certainly didn't feel sick. It was the defining moment in my life of where you're going to go from here. But something happened. I was told that night that I was going to be in a wheelchair, and then I was going to die.
How long did they say before you would be in a wheelchair?
It told me I'd be in a wheelchair in less than 2 years and dead shortly after that.
Wow.
Yeah. It's it's beautiful. It really is a beautiful story. 25 years later, my MS doc last year retired, and he had put my chart together for my new doctor, and we were all meeting at the clinic, and it was kind of like passing the keys, over to the new guy, and it was uncomfortable for me. I really did not want to, make that change, but it was inevitable because you got to have a licensed doctor. My retired doctor was going to let his license go, so. And I love the new doctor, but the new doctor had examined my chart from my diagnosis to present. And my retiring doctor in front of me says to the new doctor, he says, "What do you think?" And the new doctor looked at him. They're standing this far apart. And he goes, "It's a miracle." I said, "You guys are making me uncomfortable." I said, "Why are you saying that?" The new doctor said, "Because," he says, "looking at the amount of lesions on your brainstem, brain and spinal cord." I said, "Well, what makes it a miracle?" He says, "Well," he says, "you don't normally see someone not only not progress, but have no progression." I said, "How often have you seen it look like that?" He goes, "Never." So it's a beautiful story, and that came from faith.
So we go back 25 years. Doctor tells you got MS. If on that day someone had told you your life would be this good 25 years later, what would you have said to them?
Well, after getting diagnosed and then prognosed, I prayed to God and I begged him to give me 10 years. Just to live, not live out of a wheelchair, but would you let me live 10 years? And 25 years later, I am not looking back. I'm looking forward, and I'm looking forward to a future with my children and living a full life and loving God and being thankful every day. That I'm a sinner, and His grace is still sufficient, even for a rogue like me.
Do you feel like it's hanging over you? What's it like living with MS?
Only someone with MS knows, and could appreciate that. And, it's like having a baby, even a pregnant woman, she doesn't even know what it's like to be a mother until the baby comes out. There is no getting somebody ready for that moment. It's you have to have done it to know it. But the best way I could describe it is MS. We still don't know what causes it, and we still don't have a cure. When you look at those two things after this amount of years, I thought I was going to be that guy. I really did. And I devoted everything I had, to trying to figure those two things out. And I still have not been able to crack that code. And it doesn't mean that I give up. It's tough. It's tough because I see so many people that have MS who can't walk, can't talk. Some of them, it affects their throat. That's what I feared the most, is that it was going to affect my speech. And all of those things, fell by the wayside. I have this incredible courage because of my inner faith. And I remember the night I was diagnosed, I went home and my teeth chattered, and I was literally having a nervous breakdown over it. And I remember the next morning, I got out of bed. I didn't sleep, but I got out of bed at daylight. And I walked into one of the back rooms, shut the door, locked it, had my guitar. I laid on the floor, totally prostrate, as they say, just flat as I could get on the floor, crying. And I prayed out to God. And I was begging him for my life. But then there was this moment that I felt this unbelievable strength come over my body, and I knew that it was the Holy Spirit. I lost all fear. And I said to God, I surrender. Any way you want it to go, bud, I'm going to go that way. It was, I never cried again over MS.
How has living with MS made you a better man?
For all the right reasons that you would think. There are some people that think, okay, you become religious because you get a diagnosis like that. That's not true. I would compare it to being rich. Being poor and being rich. Does being rich change who you are? No. Being rich magnifies what you are. If you're a jerk, you're going to be a 10 times bigger jerk. If you're a good person and you become rich, you are going to be generous. If you're a bad person and you get diagnosed with something like that, you can say, screw God, I'm done with this, he didn't protect me, blah, blah, blah. I found out that I did have faith, and I chose to surrender all of it because I believe that we are creations and that there's a creator that knows every fiber of your being, and nobody can fix it as good as he can. So that's the only thing that explains why my MS went into remission like it did. It just doesn't happen that way.
We don't know what causes it, as you said. We don't have a cure for it. One person gets diagnosed with MS every hour of every day, every year in the United States. What would you say to a person who was diagnosed with MS today?
I would say, if you can find a way to be calm and hear these words, you're going to be okay. We can do more for MS today than when I was diagnosed 25 years ago. There was nothing. I mean, nothing. It was the phrase was, diagnose and adios. Today, there are medications that can reduce the damage that MS can do by light years. So that's a great thing, right? A great thing. It's not a racket. Most people are against pharmaceutical companies, and maybe for good reason. But where MS is concerned, I've seen too many people. I've been in the tightest circles of doctors, the tightest circle of pharmaceuticals, the tightest circles of the patients. The ones that are on the medication are doing way better. So take control of what you can control. And if you have faith, pray.
What is something that you've done to manage MS that didn't come from your doctor? Something around
There's a lot of
lifestyle,
things.
something around attitude.
There's a lot of things. The medicine part of it is only half the battle. It's and the other pieces, that I think are significant are, it's important to be healthy as you can be. There's no magic diet for MS. It's BS. I've been through all of it. I already know. I was a fanatic when I was first diagnosed. I would only eat steamed vegetables, steamed fish, and drink water. I lost 40 pounds. I was almost emaciated looking, because I went over the top with it. And, now I have wine, I eat red meat, I lightly exercise, I stay active, very, very active. The psychological piece of it is very important, and you need a support group. Hopefully that's your family, hopefully. some people don't have tight ties with their family, or they don't have a significant other that's supportive of them. A lot of people get divorced when they get MS. But it is important to talk. It is therapy. You know, whenever I hear someone tell me, hey, I know this person that got diagnosed, or what's their number? I don't care. Every single time I hear that, it's my way of giving back. It's my way of showing him, hey, I'm grateful. Let me reach out to that person and be that voice. I was talking to a man who's 35 years old. This is last week. Someone randomly told me about a guy they knew that had MS. I called him. And he was being bold in the beginning, you know, and tough and everything. He has 3 kids, wife, 3 kids. And I said, hey, I said, I want to tell you something. I want you to listen real close when I say this. You're going to be all right. He broke down and started crying. He needed to hear that. If you've been newly diagnosed, that's the truth. You're going to be all right.
You wrote a book. Jesus was a cowboy.
Country boy.
Country boy. So
Maybe he was a cowboy too.
Jesus was a country boy. What was it like writing the book? What did you want to share with people?
You know, it was a poor attempt with a really good, you know, there was a lot of good intentions behind it, like most things. But I think I was reaching out, you know, not really trying to preach, but to find answers, you know, in a world that, and I still feel this way, that there's so much ambiguity, you know, among Christians. I was baptized Catholic when I was born, but my mother and father divorced when I was 3. So I was raised Assembly of God, which I wouldn't trade for anything. Learned so much, you know, about the Bible. Continue to learn so much about the Bible through my mother, who's still Assembly of God. And you know, and I very much found Catholicism, you know, to be my religion of choice, for, you know, too many reasons to unpack in one sitting here. But it was, even between my mother and myself, it was difficult, you know, to have religious conversation when she's the one who raised me and taught me everything that I knew about the Bible. There seemed to be such a big gap. The lenses were so different, you know, and I wrote this song called Jesus Was a Country Boy. And it talks about my mom and dad, you know, in the song, and these preachers on TV and this and that. And one day I told my mom, I said, you know, I've never seen a priest drive off in a Cadillac. And I said, they take a vow of poverty, Mom. I said, that's kind of attractive to me. And I got her attention when I said that. I said, I am not trying to convert you. I said, I'm trying to tell you that people need both lenses. There's no reason for Christian brothers and sisters to be divided. And you know, I still believe that. And so what I was trying to do in that book was talk about my life, some of my beliefs, and the commonalities that we share as Christians. And I asked the question to some of my bandmates. One of the guys in our band is Catholic, my drummer, and the rest are Protestant and in different religions. Excuse me. You know, we even have some people who love Buddhism. I mean, we are very much a melting pot on our bus. And I said, no debate here. I said, but I just had this epiphany. Martin Luther left the church for good reason. It was very corrupt. at the time. I said, I wonder if the Protestants since Martin Luther have ever wanted to look back over the fence and say, because this was my journey. My journey was, how do I find the root? Because I'm a gardener. I plant trees, grow food. I plant vegetables, flowers, everything. And the root is what matters. Leaves can die, branches can be cut off, but you ever destroy the root, it's dead. It's dead. And the root of Christianity, no matter how anybody wants to slice it, is Catholicism. So I wanted to go back and examine that, and I took that walk. And, am I sad about the corruption inside of the Catholic Church? Absolutely. It's an atrocity, scandal, ambiguity, false teaching, all kind of things, that are going on. But the doctrine has never been changed. It's apostolic. And so, I think the book, Jesus Was a Country Boy, was a very poor, attempt to unite the people that I love and make them stronger. Hopefully I'll write a better book than that. I mean, that's the plan.
What's the strangest conversation you've ever had with God?
This one. By the way, you are killing me. You are so good. This blows my mind. But ask me the question again.
What's the strangest conversation you've ever had with God?
I once learned from a good friend of mine who may or may not be sitting at this table that even an honest statement to God, like I really don't feel like praying today, is a prayer. And I've had a few of those. And I think what probably the most strange conversation I had with God was in a deep, deep, deep meditation. I've only done it twice because it's very scary to be vulnerable and to lay it all out there. And I was going through a divorce, and I was in a really dark place, just a place that I've been in a long time, and I turned out all the lights in the back of the bus, and I was the only one on the bus, and shut the door, the windows, everything. I don't even know how many hours that I was in meditation. But every thought that would come into my head, and I'd never been taught how to meditate, but every time I would have a thought, I would kick it out of my thought space. And I was very broken, as most people are when they're going through a divorce. And I was concerned about how I would ever receive communion again. Any of all these thoughts going through my head. I just started letting these thoughts, they're just kicking them out left and right until there was nothing but silence. And it was the scariest moment of my life too, because I was waiting on God's voice. And I wasn't going to be the one to create that. I wasn't going to create what he was saying. I was really going to listen, and I was trembling. I was literally scared. And I heard him say, "You failed." And that was a tough moment for me, because I knew I had. And he said, "You failed me, and you failed her. You were supposed to lead her to me." And then I heard him say the most beautiful thing that I ever heard in my life. He said, "But that's okay. I'll break her on the rock. And I knew what he meant. That's Jesus Christ. And then he released me, and I just, had all the tears you can imagine, but there was this flood of forgiveness, flood of mercy. And I knew that everyone, including our 2 daughters, was going to be okay. That was not only a strange conversation, but a beautiful one.
Mm. Do you have a favorite memory as a Catholic?
I've had some rough moments as a Catholic. There's a lot of anti-Catholicism out there. You probably know that. I don't wear it on my sleeve about being a Catholic because of that reason, probably. And I'm a public figure to some degree, and have fans, and some of them are Catholic, some of them are. I know that. But my favorite moment, maybe, as a Catholic, happened last week. My son, who just turned 13, we were invited over some friends' home to be guests. My friend's brother is a priest, and it was just our 2 families going to celebrate Mass. I've never done this inside a home, and that's the way it used to be done, in the early apostolic age, because they had to hide. They weren't out in the open with it. And I go to communion on my knees and on my tongue. It's the way I believe. That I can show the most reverence towards God. And my 13-year-old son, who just turned 13, was in communion in front of me, and he knelt down to receive communion, and he crossed his he crossed his arms, and he asked the priest to come down there, and he whispered to him, "I haven't been to confession." That was the coolest thing.
Mm.
Sorry about that, but coolest thing that I have led him to have a well-formed conscience. As a dad, that was like my most proud moment so far. And I know that there'll be other moments, but as a Catholic, I was like, he knows the difference between right and wrong. Not only that, he's deeply moved by Christ. And as a dad, you can't do it any better than that. Through all my failures, all those mistakes I've made, I did something right with him. And that, as a, unexplainable feeling, unless you've experienced it. It was great.
Your life is full of many passions. Let's talk about some of them other than music. I know one of them is making a difference in other people's lives.
Through wine. No.
Wine is one way. We'll get to the wine. Hold your horses. We're getting to the wine.
Yeah.
But your foundation's raised more than $5 million for MS.
Yeah.
I had the chance to be out at Pebble Beach a few years ago with you for the Clay Walker Classic. Amazing experience. Incredible group of people. What's one of your favorite memories from hosting the Clay Walker Classic each year at Pebble Beach?
That is, that's one of the things I'm most proud of. It's because it's a total give on my part, but yet I receive more than I could ever give. The tournament is called the Clay Walker Charity Classic, and it's a full partnership with the Pebble Beach Company, the greatest, golf resort on earth. And we have a partnership with them. Being able to take that brand that was been around since 1919 and put it with our MS brand not only gives it, validity, but it gives it a platform second to none in the golfing world to bring, very much needed dollars to people who suffer with MS. And it brings so much knowledge too, and exposure, to most people do not know what MS is. It's multiple sclerosis, and they don't even know what that is. So getting that word out there, it also is a beacon for the people living with MS. I've received, countless emails, countless letters, countless thank yous, that they can see someone is fighting that fight with them and for them. And look, it brings an incredible amount of joy to those people. It brings joy to me. So I appreciate your participation in that. And as I do everyone who comes and shows, their philanthropy and just their time, really. Time is the most valuable thing we have.
Are you surprised at how many celebrities come and spend that time with you and the people that are supporting the foundation?
Probably the greatest thing, one of the first years we started it, I reached out to Jeff Foxworthy, and Jeff immediately said, absolutely. And I offered to, fly him there, and he goes, no. He says, I'm flying myself. I'll take care of all my expenses. I don't want you to do anything. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. He comes out there, and I'll walk over to his hotel room, and we're just getting ready to go out, and he's gonna do his bit, And I said, hey man, all you need to do is 15 minutes. I did not want to put, big lift on him being a monster celebrity, And he looked at me and he goes, what? He goes, I can't even get warmed up in less than an hour. And like he was panicking that he wasn't good. And I was like, no, you can do 5 hours. I just don't want you to feel oppressed. I don't want to feel like I'm taking it. He goes, Clay, he goes, I'm ecstatic to do this. He goes, this is going to help so many people. Yeah, I'm humbled by the celebrities that have given their time, and it has been humbling.
Now let's talk about the wine. I know you enjoy a nice bottle, but you have your own wine label now. How did that come about?
Well, I started drinking wine, about 15 years ago, and I really like it. I've discovered things that I like about wine. Certain kind of grape that I like. Is it a Cabernet, a Merlot, or Chardonnay? There's tons of different varietals of grapes. But once I discovered what I really liked, I really wanted to have a label of my own, and so we worked on that, and we're going to be coming out with something next year, the beginning of next year, that I'm very excited about. We're working with a grower that grows great Cabernet, and so stay tuned for a lot more of that.
Fantastic. Next passion, reading. I know a lot of readers. I don't know many people that read more than you. Where did you pick up your love of reading?
I've always loved literature. Love writing songs. So I love words, and because it's kind of like food. You put different seasonings, on food, and get so much different taste out of the same food by using different seasonings. And in particular, I love reading religious materials, especially stuff on Christianity, and I've studied other religions and nobody has it. Nobody has it perfect. We live in a very broken world, and you probably could tell, by talking about my son, about that, it's very personal to me, religion. And I want to be informed. I want to know the truth. I don't care what label the truth has put on it, but I want the truth. And I look for it all the time. Some of your books have really helped me. One of the greatest books I've ever read was Rediscover Catholicism. And it was the first time I'd ever read a Catholic author that it spoke to me. And the beauty through how to find the beauty through all the trouble. And that started a faith journey for me about 13 years ago that has been incredible. And I have read some of the greatest theologians because of that book. But I always go back to your writing because it is simple and piercing at the same time. I find that's what makes the greatest songs too. It's not, let me impress you with my vocabulary or my diction. It's, let me find your soul. And, I know within the first chapter of any book, if that's what the author is really seeking, because that's where I'm headed in my life. And I read every day. And I look and gravitate towards that kind of writing.
Other than reading spirituality, what else do you like to read?
Nothing. I'm boring. Okay. I mean, I could, I like playing chess. If I'm not, but there's like, I don't really read fiction. I love Lord of the Rings, and nothing compares to that for me. Once you've had that, where do you go? What else is there? I've seen nothing that even comes close to comparing to that. I love Western movies, and they stopped making them for some reason, so you got to go watch the old classics. But for entertainment, I would rather listen to music than read fiction, because music allows you to have your own thoughts and your own imagery and imagination. But if I'm going to read something, it's going to be exactly something like I described.
One of your other passions is investing. You've worked hard, you save hard, you take the stewardship of your financial assets seriously. But where did your love of investing come from?
Being poor, my family never had money. And there were a lot of worries, a lot of times when we were worried about bills, and I see the stress, on my mom or dad's face, and some of those memories, still haunt me, because of how much they worried about taking care of us and giving us things that there was a lot of, I guess, shame, for them, but not for us as kids. We never felt poor. But they, to this day, my mom, she'll cry over, days gone by about Christmas when we were kids and stuff. And I'm like, Mom, you gotta be kidding me. You gave every one of your children the greatest gift on earth, their faith, And, but I would never want my kids to have to feel like that, because, and I wouldn't want, that's never, I don't think that'll ever happen. But I didn't go to college. So, I have street smarts, and, I learned to read, people, learned to read a liar, and who wanted well for me or not, or who was trying to take advantage of me. And the music business will teach you a lot of that too. But, investing, for me is it's not emotional. I have emotional intelligence, which is being able, peripheral intelligence, to see instinctively and feel, is this right? And I believe my gut every time. And when I make an investment, I invest in people. If and everyone does not have this luxury, but through my celebrity, I have been able to meet a lot of people, and I've gotten some great advice from some very good businessmen. And the most important piece of advice I ever got was from one of the richest men in the world. And he said to me, he said, never invest in a company. Invest in the people running it. See what kind of integrity they have. See where they came from. So first I look at the CEO. I'd like to look at the owner if I can, if it's a privately owned company, but that's never failed me. I got out of the stock market in 2008, just before the crash. Don't tell me how. I don't have a crystal ball, but I got out then. And I've never been back in the stock market. I've invested in technology from companies that I knew the people. And I've invested in water because, water is something that nobody can live without. Nothing living can live without water. So I started a water development company with one of my best friends, and we've had a lot of success there. I invested in lithium technology because I met the scientist who helped invent it. And, those things, I've been very blessed in that way. But yes, it is a passion, and I enjoy it very much.
Last couple of questions. Let's go back to music. If you could put together a one-night only concert and invite any musicians to perform with you, who would you invite?
First of all, I'd pick an all-star band. If it was like a fantasy thing,
Yep.
I've got a phenomenal band that I go down the road with. But there are some guys, that you would say are the best of the best of the best. And they're Nashville guys. Probably put together a band like that. And then I would invite, my favorite singers that are still living. But if I could reach back in the past and grab some guys, Merle Haggard would be the first name, then George Strait, and then probably Elvis. Yeah, and people that know what it's all about.
You survey the landscape of the music industry today. Is there anyone out there who you see and think, wow, that's an extraordinary talent?
Yeah, I think there are some great singers out there today. The music is going through a transitional period, in our format, which I think that's going to get worked out too. It's like we've had a bunch of prototype, going on for the last, I'd say, 5 to 8 years. A lot of just change, evolution, microevolution. But I do like some of the new singers. Now I'm not going to name one or two because I want anybody who's a fan of mine, who's a singer, I want them to be encouraged and to keep doing what they're doing. And I go, oh, he picked that person and not me. I think that'd be unfair.
All right. What about best album ever produced?
That's easy. Greatest country music album ever was Killin' Time by Clint Black. There's not even a close second as far as one album goes.
Yep.
He's not my favorite singer, but he's a great singer. But that album, song 1 to song 10, unmatched as far as a whole album. Yeah.
And what makes it so?
It was his first album, and it's so well written. Not even he could live up to it. For the rest of his career, and that's a tough spot to be in. He's made some great music, but I would say that there's nothing that comes close to that. And I try, all the time, to put together 10 songs like that. But every one of those songs is so well crafted and so well produced, so well sang, that I've always believed that. I've never come off of that statement. And I love all the George Strait records. Every single George ever had. But I could always go on his album and say, oh, maybe that one's not so good. But man, that album right there, just for whatever reason, Clint just had it all together.
Is there a song of yours that wasn't a hit, a sleeper, that you just love performing live?
Oh yeah. There's a song that we have called "Makes Me Want to Stay," and it's got this Irish jig at the front of it. We did it last night in Kansas City. People were going crazy, and these are 20, 22, 23, 25-year-olds, totally in the front of the audience, and they're going crazy. When I see people dancing to a song that they don't even know, it's electrifying. It makes my spirit do a little dance too. So that one, I wish that would have been a single.
I was getting on a plane a few years back, flying to Paris, and my phone rang. It was you. You just come out of the studio. You said, I've just finished a song. I'll email it to you right now. And you sent me Long Live the Cowboy. I got on the plane, sat down, listened to it on repeat maybe 20, 30 times. It's a phenomenal song. What does it mean to you?
There's a message in that song that, that's sentimental for me, and that is that, I'm a cowboy. My dad was a cowboy, and there's only a couple of real cowboy singers. There are some hats, but there's only a couple of really cowboy singers, and I don't want that to ever die out. I hope that there's room in our format, to allow some authentic cowboy to carry that torch, and less than 1% of America, are real cowboys, and I take a lot of pride, in trying to be one of those, and so it was really sentimental, and but at the same time, there's a lot of people that have cowboy hearts, and those are the ones that matter. That's who the song was for. You don't have to wear a hat to be a cowboy. You don't have to ride horses or have cattle. To me, cowboy is about being brave enough to do the right thing, even when you know you're going to pay for it.
We've had many great conversations over the years. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for agreeing to get one down on tape that we can share with the world. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Well, you're the reason I'm here in the first place, to come here today. You're one of the most kind and, insufferable people I've ever been around. But what you do to me is you magnify what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring joy to people's life in singing. But your walk, your art that you've put out there has moved me more than any music that I've ever experienced. And I have met so many people that your words have touched and inspired. and I continue to meet them. A lot of people in my own family. And one of the coolest things that ever happened to me is one of my aunts had already known who you were. And when she found out that you and I were friends, she just went bananas, you know. So you're a big deal, whether you know it or not. And I'm thankful that you let me be on this program today. And I hope that the people watching get something out of it.
I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to Pebble Beach again next year.
Absolutely.
God bless you.
God bless you, brother.